The money was already gone, and nobody was supposed to find out. But then one clip leaked, and 50 Cent made sure the whole world saw exactly what T.I. was trying to hide. Now listen. What I'm about to walk you through is not just another celebrity beef recap. This is not just another Instagram back and forth that blows over in 2 weeks. What you are about to hear is the systematic unraveling of one of hip-hop's most carefully constructed illusions, a financial house of cards that has been wobbling for over a decade, and the one man, Curtis James Jackson III, better known as 50 Cent, who had the vision, the patience, and the ruthless precision to pull the right thread at the exact right moment and watch the whole thing come undone. And I need you to understand something before we go any further. The story the media is telling you, it's the surface, the real story, the one buried beneath the headlines, the Instagram posts, and the diss tracks. That's what we're about to expose. And trust me, by the time we're done here, you will never look at T.I., his family, or his so-called empire the same way again. But first, let me take you back to the moment that started it all. Because this didn't begin where you think it did. Everyone thinks this beef kicked off in 2026. Everyone thinks it was some random Instagram post or snarky comment that lit the fuse. But the truth? This powder keg was packed years ago. We're talking about two men who rose through the same era, the golden mid-2000s of hip-hop, both carrying crowns, both building empires, both watching each other from across the room with the kind of mutual awareness that sits right on the razor's edge between respect and resentment. 50 Cent had the East Coast on lock. The G-Unit machine was printing money, vitamin water made him a certified business mogul, and the Power franchise turned him into a television titan. T.I., meanwhile, was the self-proclaimed king of the South, a man who helped put Atlanta Trap on the global map, who built a media brand alongside his wife Tiny, and who seemed, from the outside at least, to be untouchable. But here's what nobody tells you about T's empire. From the inside, it was bleeding, and 50 Cent knew it. See, 50 doesn't move randomly. That's what people fail to understand about Curtis Jackson. Every post, every meme, every joke, every troll is a calculated chess move. While T.I. was busy projecting an image of wealth and power, 50 was watching, studying, cataloging every public financial misstep, every IRS filing, every court document. And when the moment came, when the opening finally presented itself, 50 didn't just take the shot. He orchestrated an entire campaign designed to strip away every layer of armor T.I. had spent decades building. And it all started with a versus battle that never happened. Now, this part of the story gets buried under all the noise, so let me be very clear about what went down. T.I. has publicly stated that he and 50 Cent had an agreement, a handshake deal if you will, to do a versus battle. Song for song, hit for hit, two legends going catalog against catalog. And according to T.I., when he announced it publicly, 50 Cent played dumb, acted confused, pretended like he had no idea what T.I. was talking about. And then, he started clowning T.I. on social media for even suggesting it. Now, why would 50 do that? Why would he agree to something and then publicly humiliate the other person for bringing it up? Because 50 Cent doesn't play checkers. He plays psychological warfare. And that versus situation? It wasn't about the battle. It was about establishing a dynamic. 50 wanted T.I. to feel disrespected. He wanted T.I. to feel small. He wanted T.I. to react emotionally, because 50 knows something that most people in hip-hop have never figured out. The moment you react emotionally to Curtis Jackson, you've already lost. You're playing his game now. And his game has only one rule: he always wins. But hold on. We're not even close to the main event yet. That versus situation, that was just the appetizer. The real feast was about to be served, and it was going to be a meal that T's family would never recover from. Let's fast forward to early 2026. The tension that had been simmering beneath the surface finally erupted. And when I say erupted, I mean it went nuclear in a way that nobody in hip-hop saw coming. Something happened. A comment, an interview answer that landed wrong, a subtweet that cut too deep, and suddenly, 2 decades of surface-level respect evaporated overnight. The gloves were off. The masks were down. And what followed was one of the most sprawling, deeply personal, and utterly devastating feuds in modern hip-hop history. T.I. went straight to the studio. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due here. In an era where most beefs play out entirely on social media through posts, memes, and comment section warfare, T.I. chose the old-school route. He started recording diss tracks. Not one, not two, 4 separate diss tracks aimed directly at 50 Cent, dropped in rapid succession like artillery fire. He called 50 a 5-0 dispatcher, essentially branding him a snitch. He mocked him as a keyboard warrior who talked tough online but wouldn't say it face to face. He went after 50's appearance, his character, his business dealings, everything he could think of. T.I. even announced an upcoming album called Kill the King, and honestly, the level of energy he was bringing to the studio was unlike anything we'd seen from him in years. But here's the thing, and this is where you need to pay very close attention because this is the part that changes everything. 50 Cent didn't respond with music. Let me say that again so it sinks in. T.I. dropped 4 diss tracks. 4. And 50 Cent responded with silence, Instagram posts, memes, perfectly timed trolling that made T.I. look more desperate with every bar he recorded. Now, some people looked at that and said 50 was scared. Some people said he didn't have the bars to compete. But the people who actually understand how 50 Cent operates, they knew exactly what was happening. 50 wasn't avoiding the fight. He was conducting it. He was letting T.I. exhaust himself, burn through his ammunition, make the fight personal enough that when 50 finally did respond, it wouldn't just be a diss track, it would be a detonation. And then it happened. 50 Cent shifted his crosshairs from T.I. to Tiny Harris, and in that single moment, the entire complexion of this beef changed forever. 50 shared a controversial photo of Tiny Harris performing on his Instagram. The caption was simple and devastating, a warning for T.I. to keep his name out of his mouth. Now, in the ecosystem of rap beefs, posting someone's wife is not just crossing a line. It's a declaration of total, scorched earth, no boundaries, no rules warfare. It says, I don't care about your family. I don't care about your boundaries. I don't care about respect. This is annihilation. And the thing is, 50 knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't just attacking Tiny. He was setting a trap. Because he knew that the moment he went after T's wife, T's kids would jump in. And the moment T's kids jumped in, 50 would have new targets. More content. More ammunition. More chaos to weaponize. And right on cue, King Harris walked directly into the crossfire. King Harris, T.I.'s 21-year-old son, saw 50's post about his mother and responded immediately. He commented under 50's post asking where his mama was, a reference to 50 Cent's late mother, Sabrina Jackson, who passed away when 50 was just 8 years old. Now, I want you to understand the gravity of what just happened here. A 21-year-old kid, fueled by emotion and loyalty to his family, just brought up the death of 50 Cent's mother in a public Instagram comment. He didn't stop there either. King Harris doubled down. He urged 50 to post a photo of his late mother. He posted an image of a tombstone to his Instagram stories. He shared what appeared to be a photo of 50 Cent's mother's gravesite. Now, before we go any further, let me be absolutely clear about something. What King Harris did was deeply personal. Dragging a deceased parent into a rap beef crosses a line that most people, even in hip-hop, consider sacred. But here's what most people missed in all the outrage. King Harris just gave 50 Cent the single greatest gift he could have possibly received. Because now, 50 wasn't just beefing with T.I., he was beefing with T.I.'s son. And in the court of public opinion, a 21-year-old kid who disrespects a dead woman to win an Instagram argument is never going to be the hero of the story. 50 Cent played this masterfully. Instead of responding with equal venom, instead of stooping to King's level, he did something far more effective. He used King's outburst as proof of exactly what he'd been saying all along. That T.I.'s family was chaotic, undisciplined, and crumbling from the inside out. He wove his insults into business promotions, a signature move that allowed him to troll and advertise at the same time. He captioned a post about the 2026 revival of August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone on Broadway with language that mocked T.I.'s children while simultaneously promoting his own production. Think about that for a second. The man was making money while destroying his opponent. That's not just trolling. That's economic warfare with a smile. And King Harris wasn't done either. The 21-year-old released diss tracks targeting 50 Cent. Not one, at least 3 separate records aimed at the G-Unit founder. He brought up 50's 2000 shooting, his strained relationship with his oldest son Marquise, his romantic life, everything. And one of those tracks even became its own viral moment. But here's what the Harris family didn't seem to understand, and what I need you to understand right now. Every single response was fuel. Every diss track was content. Every emotional outburst was a meme waiting to happen. Every family member who jumped and became a new target in 50's arsenal. Tiny Harris went on the Breakfast Club and brushed off 50's jabs. She praised her son's king and Domani for defending her. The family presented a united front, standing together, refusing to be bullied or humiliated. And on the surface, it looked brave. It looked strong. It looked like a family that wouldn't back down. But underneath that brave face, 50 Cent was doing exactly what he had planned to do from the very beginning. He was pulling the entire Harris family into the spotlight, not because he wanted to fight them, but because he wanted the world to look closer at them, to look closer at their finances, their legal history, their carefully curated image. Because 50 knew that the closer people looked, the more cracks they would find. And that brings us to the moment that blew this whole story wide open. The $100,000 clip. It started the way most things do in 2026, with a clip going viral. King Harris, 21 years old, appeared online discussing how he approaches his father for money. Not pocket change, not lunch money, $100,000. The clip circulated everywhere, and the framing was immediate and devastating. T.I.'s son was out here demanding 6 figures from his dad, like it was nothing. Now, hold on. Before we go any further, I need to give you something that most channels won't give you. I need to give you context, because the full picture is more complicated than the internet wanted it to be. King's actual words were that he goes to his father for investments, not handouts. Investments. He told the Morning Hustle in a recent interview that he pitches business plans to T.I., and T.I. evaluates them the way any investor would, looking at the plan, the numbers, the potential. I only go to him for investments, King said. I don't have to go to the bank. I go to him. There's also a second layer to this that almost nobody is talking about. King Harris says his dad actually exaggerates when he tells these stories. He says T.I. is the one who offers up money, and then turns around and tells the public his son is always asking for cash. Whether that's true or not, it paints a very different picture than the one the viral clip created. But here's the brutal reality of how the internet works in 2026. Context doesn't matter. Nuance doesn't survive the algorithm. The clip was stripped bare, the context was ripped away, and what the public was left with was the image of a spoiled celebrity kid demanding $100,000 from his father, like it was an ATM withdrawal. And 50 Cent? He was sitting there with his phone in his hand like a conductor waiting for the orchestra to hit the crescendo. The moment that clip went viral, 50 did what 50 does. He posted about it. He cracked jokes about T.I.'s finances. He painted the picture that King was single-handedly bankrupting the man who once called himself the King of the South. And the internet ate it up. Why? Because 50 didn't just make a joke. He tapped into something that people had been whispering about for years. T.I.'s money problems. And this is where the story gets really uncomfortable. This is the part that T.I.'s team doesn't want you to know. The part that gets scrubbed from puff pieces and ignored in friendly interviews. The part that 50 Cent has been methodically exposing, piece by piece, post by post, like a prosecutor building a case. Let me walk you through the financial reality of Clifford T.I. Harris, and I need you to brace yourself because it's worse than you think. In 2015, T.I. owed the IRS roughly $4.5 million in unpaid taxes from 2012 and 2013. Federal tax liens were filed, the kind of liens that don't just appear on your record. The kind that follow you, that haunt your credit, that make every financial institution look at you sideways. T.I. and Tiny scrambled to settle. But here's the kicker. By the time they supposedly won their big payday, they had only paid roughly $1 million of that $4.5 million bill. The IRS doesn't forget, and it absolutely does not forgive quietly. But it gets worse, because that wasn't the last time the taxman came knocking. A brand new tax lien was filed in June 2024. The rapper owed $383,512.45 for 2021 and $2,142,360.73 for 2022. That's a combined total of $2,525,873.18 in fresh tax debt. $2.5 million. Filed just months before the big MGA Entertainment lawsuit victory. And about that lawsuit victory, Let me tell you the part of the story that T.I. definitely does not want you to hear. Yes, T.I. and Tiny won $71 million in a lawsuit claiming that MGA's OMG Dolls copied the likeness of the OMG Girls, a girl group featuring Tiny's daughter Zanique and managed by the couple. That's a real verdict. That really happened. And on the surface, it looked like salvation. A man drowning in tax debt, suddenly saved by a courtroom windfall. Poetic almost. But here's what the headlines didn't tell you. Here's the information that 50 Cent knew, that financial analysts knew, and that T.I. was desperately hoping the public would never find out. That $71 million? It got slashed. A federal judge, U.S. District Court Judge James V. Selna, looked at the evidence and ruled that the $53.6 million in punitive damages was unsupported by the evidence. He literally said the maximum punitive damages sustainable by the proof was $1. $1. So that massive $71 million windfall that was supposed to save T's finances, it got chopped down to roughly $18 million. And even that is being contested. Let me break this down so you understand the full picture. T.I. owed millions in tax debt stretching back over a decade. He won a lawsuit that was supposed to clear all of that and then some. But the judge looked at the evidence and cut the award by nearly 75%. And on top of that, MGA Entertainment is appealing the remaining judgment, which means even that $18 million isn't guaranteed. Now factor in legal fees, lawyer retainers, court costs, the fact that these proceedings have been going back and forth since 2021 across 3 separate trials, the first ending in a mistrial, the second being overturned on appeal, the third producing the $71 million verdict that just got gutted. How much of that remaining money do you think actually makes it into T's pocket? How much gets eaten by the legal machine? And this is the man whose 21-year-old son is asking for $100,000 investment capital. Now do you understand why 50 Cent's trolling hit so hard? It wasn't random. It wasn't just jokes. 50 Cent was doing what 50 Cent has always done. He was taking a kernel of truth and weaponizing it. The kernel is real. T.I. has had documented financial struggles, multiple IRS liens totaling millions, a marriage that nearly broke under the weight of money problems. Tiny filed for divorce in December 2016, citing parenting issues, before they reconciled, and a courtroom windfall that just got devastated by a judicial ruling. None of that is fabricated. Those are public records, court documents, federal filings. But here's where 50's genius becomes apparent. He didn't just present the facts. He framed them. He created a narrative of decline. T.I., the king of the South, the man who helped put Atlanta Trap on the map, was being reimagined before the world's eyes as a financially unstable father whose own children were living off his dwindling fortune. And that narrative, whether it tells the complete story or not, is sticky. It sticks because it feeds into something deep in our culture, the fascination with watching the mighty fall. We love empire-building stories. We love the rise. But what we love even more, the crumble, the cracks, the moment the castle starts to shake. And 50 Cent handed the internet that moment on a silver platter. But wait, because we're not done. Not even close. 50 Cent didn't just stop at trolling. He went nuclear. In March 2026, he threatened T.I. with something that sent shockwaves through the entire hip-hop community, a documentary. Not just any documentary. A Surviving T.I. and Tiny documentary. Now, if that title sounds familiar, it should. 50 Cent was the executive producer behind Sean Combs' The Reckoning on Netflix, the devastating docuseries that laid bare the allegations against Diddy. That project didn't just create headlines. It created an earthquake. It changed how people viewed Sean Combs forever. And now 50 was threatening to aim that same documentary machine at T.I. and his family. In a since-deleted Instagram post, 50 wrote something that should have made every person in T's inner circle lose sleep. Remember how quiet I got before the doc? Dame thought I wasn't coming. I hope this doesn't mess up your promo tour. They're gonna ask about your 20 sexual assault cases. You might want to talk to a crisis PR person. Read that again. Let it sink in. 50 Cent referenced sexual assault allegations against T.I. 20 of them. Now, to be clear, T.I. and his family have denied all allegations against them, and cases were dismissed in court. But the fact that 50 Cent, a man with the resources, the platform, and the proven track record to produce career-ending documentaries, is publicly threatening to dig into those allegations, that changes the game entirely. Because this is no longer a rap beef. This is existential. This is the kind of threat that keeps publicists up at night and makes lawyers start drafting preemptive motions. A documentary from 50 Cent isn't a YouTube video. It's a Netflix-level production with real investigators, real witnesses, and a distribution platform that reaches hundreds of millions of people worldwide. T's response was telling. He posted on Instagram, "We can go bar for bar, hit for hit, or doc for doc. Either way, all you can do is show how much of a FNU is." He added, "Nobody fears you over here, boo-boo." In another post featuring his family, he wrote, "Drop whatever you choose. Just please keep showing the world you a snitch." Now, on the surface, that sounds tough. That sounds like a man who isn't backing down. But read between the lines. Doc for doc. T.I. just acknowledged that a documentary is on the table. He's not dismissing it. He's bracing for it. And the fact that he's publicly telling 50 to drop whatever you choose tells you everything you need to know about where the power dynamic actually sits in this beef. 50 Cent holds the cards. He has the platform. He has the production infrastructure. He has the proven ability to turn allegations into must-watch television. And T.I. has diss tracks and Instagram captions. And then 50 finally broke his musical silence. After letting T.I. drop 4 diss tracks into the void, 50 released "No One Told Us What We're Here For" featuring Leon Thomas. It wasn't just a diss track. It was the theme song for Power, Origins, the latest installment in 50's massively successful Stars franchise. Think about what that means. 50 didn't just diss T.I. on a random SoundCloud upload. He embedded his shots at T.I. into a commercial product, a television show, a piece of entertainment that millions of people are going to hear regardless of whether they follow hip-hop beef. That's not just trolling. That's brand integration of disrespect. That's making money off your enemy's humiliation. That's 50 Cent in his purest, most devastating form. And here's what makes this even more brilliant. By making the diss track a commercial product, 50 ensured that every time someone watches Power, Origins, every time that theme song plays, T's name is going to come up. The beef becomes inseparable from the show. The show promotes the beef. The beef promotes the show. It's a self-sustaining cycle of exposure that T.I. can't escape and can't compete with because T.I. doesn't have a television empire. T.I. doesn't have a Stars deal. T.I. has an Instagram page and a studio in Atlanta. Now let's talk about something that nobody else is going to tell you. Let's talk about why T.I. was vulnerable to this in the first place. Because the financial problems, the tax liens, the slashed lawsuit, those are symptoms. The disease goes deeper. T.I. has been managing a public image for over 2 decades. The king of the South, the trap music pioneer, the family man, the reality TV patriarch, the community investor, the man buying buildings in Bankhead, investing with Killer Mike, pouring sweat equity into the neighborhood that raised him. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that none of that is real. T.I. has done work in his community. He has invested. He has tried to build. But there's a difference between building and building on sand. And when your financial foundation is riddled with IRS liens, when your biggest legal victory just got cut by 75%, when your tax debts keep piling up faster than your settlements can pay them off, then every community investment, every real estate purchase, every public display of wealth becomes a question mark. And 50 Cent has been highlighting those question marks with a spotlight that could be seen from space. Let me give you the numbers because numbers don't lie. T's reported net worth is $30 million. That's a combined figure with Tiny, according to Celebrity Net Worth. It includes the MGA lawsuit judgment. But here's the math that nobody is doing publicly. The $71 million was slashed to roughly $18 million. MGA is appealing, so even that amount is not secure. Legal fees across 3 trials dating back to 2021 have likely consumed millions. Outstanding IRS debts of at least $2.5 million from the most recent lien alone, plus whatever remains of the original $4.5 million. Property costs, including the $3.27 million Atlanta mansion purchased in 2020. Business investments, community projects, and the general cost of maintaining a celebrity lifestyle. When you do the math honestly, that $30 million net worth starts to look a lot more fragile than T.I. would want you to believe. And King Harris asking for $100,000 from that pool isn't bankrupting anyone on paper, but the perception, the narrative. In the arena of social media, perception is reality, and the perception 50 Cent created was devastating. Now, let's talk about King Harris himself for a moment, because the kid deserves more examination than he's getting. Born Clifford Joseph Harris III, named directly after his father, King has been in the public eye since he was a child. Growing up on T.I. and Tiny, The Family Hustle, the VH1 reality show that ran from 2011 to 2017, King was always the most spirited member of the family. The wild card. The one who said what he was thinking before he had time to think about whether he should say it. As he grew older, he leaned into social media with an intensity that sometimes worried his parents and frequently entertained the internet. He went live at the wrong times. He got into confrontations that went viral. He cultivated a persona that was equal parts street and celebrity kid. And here's the uncomfortable truth about King Harris. The very qualities that make him entertaining on social media are the same qualities that make him a liability in a beef with 50 Cent. Because King doesn't calculate, King reacts, and every reaction is content. Every outburst is ammunition. Every Instagram comment is a screenshot waiting to be reposted with a mocking caption. When King brought up 50's deceased mother, he thought he was defending his family. And in his mind, maybe he was. But what he actually did was hand 50 Cent the moral high ground on a silver platter. Because now 50 could play the victim. Now 50 could say, I made jokes about a rapper's finances, and his kid responded by disrespecting my dead mother. In the court of public opinion, 50 wins that exchange every single time. And King's diss tracks? They were personal. They were venomous. They brought up 50's shooting, his relationship with his son Marquise, his romantic life. But here's what King didn't understand. 50 Cent has been getting dissed by better rappers for 2 decades. Ja Rule, The Game, Rick Ross. Men with established catalogs and massive fan bases have thrown everything they had at 50, and 50 ate every single shot and came back stronger. King Harris, a 21-year-old with a $2 million net worth and a handful of SoundCloud tracks, was never going to be the one to take down Curtis Jackson. But 50 wasn't just neutralizing King. He was using King. Every response from King became evidence of the chaos in T's household. Every diss track became proof that T's children were undisciplined, emotional, and easily manipulated. And every time King jumped back into the beef, it pulled T.I. deeper into a fight that he was losing on every front. Because let's be honest about something. T.I. was losing this beef. Not because his diss tracks were weak. Some of them actually had bars. Not because his family wasn't loyal. They showed up for him. But because 50 Cent was fighting a different war entirely. T.I. was fighting a rap beef. 50 was fighting a narrative war. And in 2026, narrative wins. Every time. 50 understood something that T.I. still hasn't figured out. In the modern media landscape, the person who controls the narrative controls everything. And 50 controlled this narrative from day one. He chose when to escalate. He chose when to go silent. He chose when to pivot from memes to music to documentary threats. Every move was deliberate. Every silence was strategic. Every joke was a brick in a wall that was slowly closing in around T's reputation. And the timing of all this? It couldn't have been worse for T.I. He was gearing up for an album release. Kill the King. He was on what should have been a promotional tour, building buzz, doing interviews, generating excitement. Instead, every interview became about 50 Cent. Every press opportunity became about the beef. Every public appearance became an opportunity for journalists to ask about documentary threats and financial problems and his son's viral $100,000 moment. 50 Cent didn't just disrupt T's album cycle. He hijacked it. He turned T's promotional period into a 50 Cent content cycle. Every headline that mentioned T.I. in the context of the beef was free advertising for 50's brand. Every time someone Googled T.I. 50 Cent beef, they were also going to see Power, Origins. They were also going to see 50's documentary production company. They were also going to see 50's brand deals, his upcoming projects, his media empire. That's the difference between these two men that nobody is talking about. T.I. makes music. 50 Cent builds ecosystems. And when you pit a musician against an ecosystem builder in a media war, the ecosystem builder wins by default because every piece of content, every headline, every social media moment feeds back into the ecosystem. It's a machine. And T.I. was trying to fight a machine with bars. Now, I want to address something that I know some of you are thinking. But isn't 50 Cent just being a bully? Isn't he just picking on T's family for content? And look, I understand why someone might see it that way on the surface. But let me offer you a different perspective. 50 Cent didn't start this. T.I. has publicly stated that the beef originated from the Versus situation. T.I. was the one who went to the studio first. T.I. was the one who dropped 4 diss tracks. T's son was the one who brought up 50's dead mother. T's family was the one who chose to collectively jump into a fight with the most dangerous troll in hip-hop history. 50 Cent responded. And yes, his response was devastating. Yes, it was personal. Yes, it exposed financial realities that T.I. would have preferred to keep private. But every single piece of information 50 used was public record. The IRS liens, public. The tax debts, public. The MGA lawsuit, public. The judge's decision to slash the award, public. 50 didn't fabricate anything. He curated, he framed, he presented, and the picture he painted was so effective precisely because it was built on a foundation of truth. There's also a broader point here that nobody is making, and I think it's important. 50 Cent has positioned himself as something unprecedented in hip-hop. Accountability figure. First Diddy, now T.I. 50 isn't just beefing with people he doesn't like. He's using his platform, his production company, and his media influence to surface allegations and financial realities that the hip-hop industry has traditionally kept hidden. Whether you love him or hate him for it, you can't deny that 50 Cent is forcing conversations that the industry desperately needed to have. The Diddy documentary exposed alleged patterns of behavior that had been whispered about for decades. And now the threat of a T.I. documentary is forcing a similar reckoning. It's forcing people to look at the Harris family's history with fresh eyes. The allegations that 50 referenced, the ones that were dismissed in court, the ones that the family has denied, those are now part of the public conversation in a way they never were before. And that's 50's power, not the trolling, not the memes, the ability to force uncomfortable truths into the spotlight and make the whole world pay attention. And speaking of paying attention, let me bring this back to King Harris and the $100,000 situation, because there's one more layer here that absolutely nobody is covering. King Harris has a reported net worth of $2 million. That's not nothing for a 21-year-old. He's got music projects, including his recent release, OGYN. He's got business ventures. He's building something. And according to his own words, when he goes to T.I. for money, he's not asking for handouts. He's pitching investment proposals, business plans, numbers. And you know what? If that's true, then there's actually something admirable about a 21-year-old who approaches his wealthy father with a business plan rather than just holding his hand out. In Silicon Valley, that would make him a prodigy. On Wall Street, that would make him ambitious. In Hollywood, that would make him savvy. But he's not in Silicon Valley. He's in hip-hop. And in hip-hop, when your father's enemy is 50 Cent, everything you do becomes ammunition. Every business pitch becomes a punchline. Every investment request becomes evidence of dependency. Every conversation gets stripped of context, clipped to maximum embarrassment, and served up to millions of people who are watching for the drama, not the nuance. That's the tragedy of King Harris's situation. He might actually be doing the right things, but he's doing them in the worst possible environment, at the worst possible time, with the worst possible opponent watching his every move. And 50 Cent knows this. Of course he knows this. That's why the $100,000 clip was such a gift. Because it didn't matter what King actually said. It didn't matter that he was talking about investments. All that mattered was the optics. A rapper's kid, asking for 6 figures, from a father with documented financial problems. That's the clip that writes its own caption. That's the clip that trolls itself. All 50 had to do was repost it and let the internet do the rest. Now let me tell you where this is headed, because I've been watching 50 Cent's patterns for years, and I can tell you with a high degree of confidence what comes next. The documentary isn't going away. 50 deleted the Instagram post, but that doesn't mean the project is dead. 50 has a history of going quiet before dropping something massive. He even referenced it himself. Remember how quiet I got before the doc? That was a warning. And based on everything we've seen, based on the Diddy documentary playbook, based on 50's production pipeline, and based on the sheer volume of material he now has to work with from this beef, a surviving T.I. and Tiny project is not just possible. It's probable. And if it happens, T.I.'s problems multiply exponentially. Because a Netflix-level documentary isn't something you can fight with diss tracks and Instagram captions. It's something you fight with lawyers and PR teams and crisis management firms. And those things cost money. Money that, based on the financial picture we just laid out, T.I. might not have in abundance he once did. But here's the thing that 50 Cent understood before anyone else. And it's the key to understanding why he's been playing this entire situation like a grandmaster. It was never about the $100,000. It was about the narrative. It was about creating a story of decline. T.I., the king of the South, the man who helped invent trap music, reduced to a cautionary tale about financial mismanagement, family chaos, and the dangers of picking a fight with the wrong person. And whether that narrative is entirely fair or not, it's out there now. It's in the public consciousness. Every time someone searches T.I.'s name, they're going to see 50 Cent's version of the story. Every time someone watches a Power episode, they're going to hear echoes of this beef. Every time someone sees King Harris on social media, they're going to remember the $100,000 clip. That's 50 Cent's legacy in this situation. Not just winning a beef, rewriting the story, becoming the narrator, controlling how the world sees his opponent for potentially the rest of their career. And he did it without dropping a single traditional diss track until the very end. He did it with memes, business moves, documentary threats, and perfectly timed silence. That's not bullying. That's mastery. Now, I know T.I. supporters are going to push back on everything I just said, and they have some valid points. T.I. has invested in his community. He's buying buildings in Bankhead. He's working with Killer Mike and other developers. He's pouring his own money and sweat equity into revitalizing the neighborhood he grew up in. He's not just sitting on a couch counting stacks. He's building. And his son King, for all the internet noise, is also trying to build. Through music, through business, through the messy, public process of being a young man figuring out his path under a microscope. But here's the uncomfortable reality that T.I.'s defenders don't want to face. Building on an unstable financial foundation is not building. It's gambling. And when your tax debts keep growing, when your biggest legal win just got gutted, when your family is being publicly deconstructed by the most effective media operator in hip-hop, your building starts to look a lot more like survival than strategy. And 50 Cent? 50 is thriving. His Power franchise continues to expand. His documentary production company is the most feared entity in entertainment. His net worth dwarfs T.I.'s. His media presence is omnipresent. He's not just winning the beef. He's winning at life. And the contrast between where 50 Cent sits and where T.I. sits right now is the most devastating commentary of all. Because at the end of the day, this entire saga, the Verzoos humiliation, the Instagram war, the diss tracks, the documentary threats, the $100,000 clip, the Slash lawsuit, the IRS liens, all of it, tells you one thing that nobody else is willing to say out loud. 50 Cent is operating on a level that T.I. simply cannot reach. Not because T.I. is untalented, not because T.I. hasn't contributed to hip-hop, but because 50 has evolved beyond being a rapper. He's a media mogul, a television producer, a documentary filmmaker, a brand, a machine, and T.I. is still fighting like it's 2006, throwing bars at a man who stopped caring about bars a decade ago. The beef between 50 Cent and T.I. has officially reached a level that hip-hop hasn't seen in years. It's personal, it's financial, it's familial, it's legal, and it's potentially career-altering for one side. But here's the final question that's going to keep the internet talking for months to come. And I mean this seriously. If 50 Cent drops the documentary, what does T.I. have left? Because diss tracks won't save you from a Netflix series. Instagram captions won't protect you from a six-part investigation. And Kill the King isn't just an album title anymore. It's starting to sound like a prophecy. 50 Cent once wrote, "To entertain is to provoke emotions. Love me or hate me, it's cool. Just care enough to feel some kind of way." T.I. cared. His family cared. His son cared. They all felt some kind of way. And that's how you know 50 Cent already won. The only question now is how much more damage he decides to do before he gets bored and moves on to the next target. Because make no mistake, when 50 Cent decides the story is over, it'll be over on his terms. Not T's, not King's, not Tiny's, his. And that quiet you're hearing right now from 50's side, that's not retreat. That's not surrender. That's not fear. That's the sound of a man sharpening his next weapon. And if history has taught us anything, what comes after the silence is always, always worse. Stay locked in, because this story is far from over. And when the next chapter drops, you're going to want to say you were here from the beginning. Because the beginning, that was the $100,000 clip. The ending, nobody knows yet. But one thing is certain. 50 Cent does, and he's not telling.